Back in the days before the RTS genre died, there was a game called Red Alert 2. Opinions on this game tend to be somewhat mixed, with some people believing that it's not really all that balanced or that it doesn't have the same feel to it, the same style, the same depth of tactics that Red Alert 1 had. And in some aspects, yes, they are absolutely right. This game is not that well balanced. A well-used Kirov will just destroy the enemy. Taking out one single building can be murder. Sneaking with a chrono trooper and just taking out an entire building without the enemy seeing you can absolutely wreck the enemy. And sneaking with a single UFO in between the small corridor of anti-air guns to park it on a power station and just take out anything that needs power, so every defensive weapon and any building that needs it, that's just murderous. That's not what you would call balanced, as if in StarCraft you had one unit that you could park on a supply depot and it would shut down the anti-aircraft turrets. So I get why people would say that this game isn't balanced. And other people say that it's the most fun you'll ever have in an RTS. And they are absolutely right. Red Alert 2 is the most fun you'll ever have in a real-time strategy game. Now the game is campy as hell. The story is hilariously executed, but not in a cringy fashion. No, it's done knowingly funny by people who are actually good actors, like Udo Kier, who's played a lot of roles over a lot of years. He's been Dracula once, he's been the Moon Führer, and there's also Carrie, I can't pronounce her last name, from Sliders, who plays the best incarnation of Tanya ever made. And although the story has its serious points, it's a war story where millions of people die, it's funny. And that sense of amusement doesn't just come from the cinematics, it comes from the gameplay itself. This game is dreadfully silly at times. Even when you're in the middle of a battle, of a giant siege, even when you see 4 dreadnoughts just staring down the Statue of Liberty, when you see, well, you sort of get to attack the Pentagon and the World Trade Center, this game being made before the attacks, even then, the game is still funny. Now, I have problems with games that keep taking place in New York. It's all about, oh look, how New York is utterly destroyed. Please feel something for our game where we glorify the suffering of others in our misery porn. I have trouble with those games because they lack any sort of creativity. They're sometimes downright despicable. Either that or full of jingoism. Red Alert 2 was made before 9/11, and that kind of shows, because even though you will assist in the destruction of parts of DC, of parts of New York, there is no jingoism in it. There's just, and this may sound out of place when talking about a war game where the US is invaded and a lot of places are invaded and people die, it's filled with joy. It's so colorful, so non-grim, dark, serious, gray, brown, shoot behind the cover wall, everything, stuff dies, explosion. It's a game where you get to control dolphins as a combat unit. It's a game where you can mind control a bus, a school bus, put your soldiers in it, drive it past the enemy defenses because they won't shoot at a school bus, and then kill everyone. It's a game where you can strap TNT to a cow, mind control that cow to an enemy base, and blow it up. It's a game where you can mind control an alligator, an incredibly well animated alligator, and have it run around killing people. Not just enemies, but just people. This is another thing that really set Red Alert 2 apart from RTS games of its time. It didn't feel like it took place on an empty battlefield. Even the third one didn't manage that. No, you were in an actual place. There were people running for their lives. There were cars parked outside of a drive-thru. There was an outdoor cinema somewhere around there. There were trucks with crates in them you could pick up and use as resources. The battlefields, the maps felt like they were alive. Like they weren't dead ruins like you'd see in StarCraft. Like there were actual places, and that made this game shine. It gave it a personality that a lot of RTS games just don't have. Yeah, mechanically, I'll give it to it. Riddler 2 isn't all that great. It doesn't have that much micro in it. The macro is a bit, well, let's make a bunch of Kirovs and blow everyone up. It's not the kind of RTS that would be an esport, but it is the kind of RTS you'll play again and again simply because you're having fun with it. When I first played it and by accident I infiltrated an enemy battle lab with a spy and got new units, it sort of blew my mind because I just got units I had no idea existed. It gave a sense of exploration, a sense of this game being more than just about making a bunch of units and destroying everything. It made it more about how you destroy everything. Not with a bunch of units, but you could use a super weapon, you could use an exploding cow, you could use all sorts of dumb things to just have fun with it. And you could. You absolutely could. Either in the skirmish, the multiplayer, or in the great single-player campaign. It wasn't pure average single-player campaign, oh no, not at all. The maps were interesting, the objectives were at times very strange. You had to turn the Eiffel Tower into a giant Tesla cannon. You had all sorts of interesting objectives to do, not just blow up the enemy every time. You had a limitation set on you. You had, well, I wouldn't say challenges because the AI tended to be a bit simplistic and would only win because it had advantages in terms of resources and the ability to build things faster than you. So yeah, it did have challenges in that sense, even though the AI itself, the combat portion, was a bit weak. Riddler 2 had charm to it. That's about as well as I can define it. It had charm because of the objectives, because of the way the maps look, because of the graphics, the amazing graphics that scale incredibly well with high resolutions. The music by Frank Lepaki, which is downright amazing. That sense of exploration when you accidentally put a dog in an IFV and just come out with another unit, one that barks at people. Oh no, it had a machine gun. But still, you could put units from one faction into units from another faction and get something completely new. That's something you don't see in a lot of RTS games. And honestly, the closest other RTS game to Riddler 2 in terms of objectives, in terms of world design, in terms of what you did, how you did it, was StarCraft 2. And the reason for this is that they both had the exact same lead designer, a fellow by the name of Dustin Browder, who is currently also game director for Heroes of the Storm. And you can tell because StarCraft 2, even though it was a grim story at times, it didn't take itself as seriously as StarCraft 1 did. Now, if you wanna play Riddler 2, the only way you can get it right now is off Origin, for the price of €7.50. Now that price isn't just for Riddler 2, it's for every Command & Conquer game ever made, even the crappy ones like Tiberium Twilight. Though Riddler 2 was free last year on Origin, so they may make it available for free again. If they do, I really encourage you to pick it up. Well, get it regardless. The game is still playable and it still has a multiplayer community. You can find people to play this game in multiplayer right now after you install a certain client that makes it compatible with modern internet standards because it used IPX back then and needs a new client to actually work. But even if you don't go into multiplayer, just play the campaigns, play skirmish, have fun with cows, have fun with alligators, sink some ships with a giant squid. Yes, you have giant squids as units in this game, it's that kind of game, and have fun with it, enjoy it. Let it entertain you, and maybe even play the expansion, which added kind of a bit too many units. It also fixed some bugs I was really keen on abusing, like putting a desolator to attack the ground, thereby increasing the toxicity of the ground to the point where tanks blew up when they passed by it. But not the apocalypse tanks, those were death on treads. Tanks don't have wheels. They also can't swim, so you can just teleport them in the water. As I've said, this game gave you a lot of options, a lot of ways you could play it, a lot of ways you can just amuse yourself. So go play Command & Conquer Riddler 2. You deserve to have a cheerful RTS in your life. One that's better made than Red Alert 3. If you enjoyed this show, hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Or, if you thought it was horrible, then share it with your enemies and make them suffer. We shall be your weapon of vengeance. But if you liked what you saw, you could, I don't know, maybe donate, because basically YouTube is horrible at revenue, by using the link in the description, or just buy my book. It's a fantasy book about, well, a lot of stuff. I guarantee it won't suck, and if it does suck, you can find me here and complain about it.